A stakeholder experienced in predictive methods asks where to find the escalation process in adaptive lifecycle projects. Okay, option A. The communication management plan of the project defines the escalation process. Option B, iteration review meeting takes care of escalation. You can come in the meeting and escalate whatever you want. Daily stand-up meeting takes care of escalation, option C. So B and C talking about meetings where people can come and escalate. Option D, the escalation process does not exist in the adaptive life cycle. I think this one is little easy to pick. I wait for you to pick your own choices. Okay, so the idea here is the thing which I am trying to stress based on this question is, even in the agile way of working, especially when you are working in a project context, because we are not talking about pure agile where project does not exist. We are talking about doing adaptive way of working in the project context. So whenever you have a project context, you have a stakeholder, you have a formal communication needs, you have a contract to take care, you have some set of stakeholder to communicate various information. So in a project context, things like communication management plan, things like stakeholder engagement plan, things like quality management plan, they remain valid even if you are working in the agile way of working. Now, it might be a very lightweight understanding. It might be a just one-page understanding, but there has to be an understanding of how do we communicate, how do we do things, how do we escalate, how do we do a governance. So there has to be a clarity of it. And in our predictive as well as adaptive lifecycle space, the escalation related thing is usually placed in a communication management plan. So the question which this is trying to reiterate, or I am trying to reiterate with the help of this question, is that please don't assume that things like communication management plan or a stakeholder engagement plans are not needed in the agile way of working. They are needed. Now, in many cases, the way you work in the agile takes care of your communications also. There are some predefined meetings which are prescribed as a way of handling your day-to-day communication, and that itself becomes a communication management plan. But in today's world, a lot of things are happening in a remote way. Even though with a pure agile way of working, we need to have a little bit more explicit understanding of various things like communication, escalation, stakeholder engagement, quality management. So these understandings are needed. Now let's go with the options. Option A seems to be a good one for me, and let's see other one. Option B, iteration review meeting takes care of an escalation. Not necessary. So it's like the iteration review meeting is primarily meant for reviewing and learning what we have developed based on our previous understanding and previous discoveries, and how with the help of this development, we can take more feedback, we can learn and identify how to move forward next iteration onward. So that's the whole objective. If there is something which requires compliance related escalation, if there is something, not necessarily you need to wait for iteration review and make it an agenda item, the iteration review. So not necessary. Option C, the daily stand-up meeting is primarily for your team. Yeah, your stakeholder coming to a daily stand-up and escalating something might create the confusion more than a value for a daily stand-up meeting. So you want to focus on figuring out in a daily stand-up, how are we doing in current iteration and what should we do differently so that we meet our objective. That's the whole idea of a daily stand-up meeting. So not a thing. The escalation process does not exist in the adaptive life cycle. That seems to be clear out, because when you are working in a project space, we need to take care of escalation as well. Yeah. So what is the option here? What is the right answer? From my understanding, from my view, the option A is the most appropriate answer for this particular question.